Why have we as an enlightened society decided to elect a person to the most powerful position in the free world using a system that's inherently unfair and outdated? I don't have the answer to that question, but that's exactly what we are doing. Now, I bet you're asking yourself, what in the hell is this guy talking about? Well, if you've been living under a rock for however long you've been living under there, the Electoral College is a process by which the United States elects the president and vice president. These offices are chosen by electors who are selected by the political parties. The number of electors in any state is equal to the number of U.S. senators and representatives that state has in Congress. Look, guys, at what point do we finally take a step back and ask the question, why are some voters allowed over 3.5 times the representation of others in presidential elections? I think if people realized the citizens of Wyoming had one electoral vote per 190,000 people, while California had one vote per 720,000 people, they may rethink their position. Imagine a world where geography determines the weight of your worth when choosing your government. When can we finally agree that we are equal and that our representation in government elections should be reflective of that agreement? Some argue that if it went to a popular vote, the president would be chosen, and I quote, by New York and California. That premise doesn't hold water for me. For one, we just had a Republican disprove the theory. Also, two of the three largest states are Texas and Florida. Both states vote reliably Republican, and neither one is New York or California. Another argument I hear for keeping this archaic system in place is that it protects rural interests in Washington. However, the Senate already gives small states disproportionate power in the upper house of the legislative branch of government. No law can be passed, nor dollars spent without congressional approval. This is more than enough protection for rural states. A president, however, must represent everyone, and that is why we should all have an equal say in who that is. Finally, there's the argument from the constitutionalists that this system is what the Founding Fathers intended. While it is undeniable that the Electoral College is indeed what the Founding Fathers intended, 200-year-old practices that make elections less fair shouldn't be kept just because they've been around forever. We don't have slavery anymore. It had also been around since the founding of the nation. African American slaves were also weighted less important in governmental processes due to the Three-Fifths Compromise of 1787, just as citizens of California and Texas are today. Calm down. I'm not comparing the evils of slavery to the Electoral College, just drawing a parallel. We got rid of slavery because it is evil for one man to take away the freedom of another. At its root, it is fundamentally unfair. That sense of American fairness is what should appeal to all of us all these years later, and we should not allow the fundamental unfairness to persist when we have the power to correct it. Another question I hear people asking is, why is the Electoral College stuck around for so long if it's truly unfair? Well, historians probably have their own answers to that question, but my opinion is at the end of the day, it was kept around for years because it had never mattered before. One day it did matter, and George Bush was elected president while still losing the popular vote. It was considered a fluke, as Bush's Florida victory was razor close and thus gave him the edge over Gore in the Electoral College. The popular vote was just as close, and the problem didn't arise again until 2016 when Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by millions, but lost to Donald Trump in the Electoral College. 20 years from now, it may be the Democrats or some other party that benefits from this system. It will still be a fundamentally unfair relic of history that has somehow persisted into modern politics. Other than people in populous states, I don't think people realize that there's also a whole other segment of voters that are disenfranchised by the Electoral College. To put it in perspective, I asked myself, what about those Democrats in heavily red districts in states like Alabama and Wyoming that don't bother voting because they know their vote doesn't matter? Wyoming's always going to be red, and so is Alabama. I also wonder about the California Republicans who feel the same way. Alright, picture this. Really, picture it. What if we elected our president by popular vote? One person, one vote. What could be fairer than that? Are you picturing it? All of a sudden, all 50 states matter. not just 7 or 8 swing states. All of a sudden, Republicans in California and Democrats in Wyoming can have their voice heard in a presidential election for the very first time. Let's make America fair again.